The sound of her own heartbeat drowned out everything else as Lily pressed her body against the bathroom door. Blood trickled down her chin. Her arm, twisted at an unnatural angle inside a makeshift sling, throbbed with each terrified breath. This wasn't the first time Daniel had hurt her, but it was the first time she thought he might actually kill her. "Open the door, you stupid bitch!" Daniel's fist pounded against the thin wood, making it shudder. "You think hiding will make things better? I'll break this door just like I broke your arm." Lily's trembling fingers scrolled through her phone contacts, stopping at a name she never thought she'd call. Marco Moretti. The Wolf. Her boss at the restaurant where she'd worked for 3 years. The man who customers whispered about when they thought no one was listening. The man whose dark eyes sometimes lingered on her a moment too long. The man who ran half the city. Another crash against the door. A crack appeared near the hinges. Lily pressed call. 1 ring, 2 rings. She closed her eyes, praying. "Lily?" His voice was deep, controlled, surprised. "Marco, Her voice broke. "Can you come get me? He broke my arm. I think he's going to kill me." The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but felt eternal. When Marco spoke again, his voice had changed. Ice had replaced surprise. "Where are you?" "My apartment, the bathroom. He's trying to break—" A splintering crack cut her off as Daniel's boot connected with the door. Wood splintered around the lock. "He's breaking in," she whispered, pressing herself against the bathtub. "Listen to me, Lily." Marco's voice was deadly calm. "I'm already on my way. 3 minutes. Keep the line open. If he gets in before I arrive, put the phone down and fight. Anything you can grab, use it. Understand?" "Yes," she whispered, eyes darting around the small bathroom for a weapon. "Who the hell are you talking to?" Daniel screamed, his voice slurring with alcohol and rage. "You calling the cops? They won't get here in time." Another kick. The doorframe cracked. 1 more would do it. Through the phone, Lily heard the roar of an engine, tires screeching. Marco was driving fast, but would he be fast enough? The final kick came with a thunderous crash. The door burst open, hanging from a single hinge. Daniel stood in the doorway, his face contorted with rage, knuckles bloody from beating the door. "There you are," he snarled, lunging forward. Lily grabbed the closest thing, a ceramic soap dish, and swung. It connected with Daniel's temple, stunning him momentarily. Blood trickled down his face, his expression changing from rage to murderous fury. "You're dead," he whispered, reaching for her throat. The sound of tires screeching to a halt outside barely registered. Daniel's hands closed around Lily's neck, squeezing. Her vision began to darken at the edges. Then came the sound of her apartment door being kicked open with such force it might have been a gunshot. Heavy footsteps pounded down the hallway. Daniel's grip loosened slightly as confusion crossed his face. Before he could turn, a shadow filled the doorway, tall, broad, radiating lethal calm. Marco stood there, his expensive suit immaculate, his eyes burning with a cold fire Lily had never seen before. "Let her go!" Each word dropped like a stone into still water. "This is just the beginning, and I know you're already invested. You can't leave these characters hanging, can you? Subscribe now so you won't miss how this story unfolds. You're already here. Don't turn away now." Daniel released Lily's throat but didn't back away. Instead, he sneered at Marco, too drunk and too stupid to recognize death when it stood before him. "Who the hell are you supposed to be? Her boyfriend?" Daniel laughed, swaying slightly. "This isn't your business, suit. Walk away while you still can." Marco's expression didn't change. Not a muscle moved in his face as his eyes took in everything. Lily's broken arm, the bruises forming on her neck, the blood on her lip. Then his gaze shifted back to Daniel, assessing him like a butcher eyeing a piece of meat. "Lily," Marco said quietly, never taking his eyes off Daniel, "can you walk?" She nodded, pulling herself up using the edge of the sink, her broken arm screaming in pain. "Then walk past me. Go to the black Escalade outside. My driver will take care of you." Daniel lunged forward, trying to grab Lily. "She's not going anywhere." What happened next was so fast, Lily could barely process it. Marco moved with terrifying efficiency, catching Daniel's outstretched arm and twisting it behind his back in one fluid motion. A sickening crack filled the bathroom as Daniel's wrist snapped. His scream was cut short when Marco slammed his head against the bathroom mirror, shattering it. "Go, Lily, now!" Marco's voice remained eerily calm despite the violence of his actions. She stumbled past them, hearing Daniel's gurgled threats and curses as Marco held him against the broken mirror. In the hallway, she paused, looking back at the bathroom. "Marco, don't—" "I won't kill him," Marco said, understanding her unspoken concern. "But he needs to understand what happens when you touch what's mine." "What's mine?" The words echoed in Lily's mind as she made her way outside to the waiting SUV. Had she always been his in some way she didn't understand? The driver, a stone-faced man with a scar across his cheek, opened the door without a word. Inside, first aid supplies were already laid out on the seat. Through the open apartment window, Lily heard Daniel's screams. Then silence. 5 minutes later, Marco emerged from the building, straightening his cuffs. There was blood on his knuckles, but his face showed no emotion. He slid into the SUV beside her, his proximity both terrifying and comforting. "Is he—" Lily couldn't finish the question. "Alive, in pain. He won't trouble you again." Marco's voice softened as he looked at her arm. "That needs proper medical attention." "I can't afford—" "Don't." The single word cut off her protest. Marco reached out, his bloodied hand hovering near her face before gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You called me. That means you're under my protection now." The SUV pulled away from the curb, carrying Lily away from the apartment she'd called home for 3 years. Only now did the full weight of what she'd done hit her. She'd called a man known for his ruthlessness, a man who operated in shadows. The restaurant job had given her glimpses of his world, mysterious meetings in private rooms, the way people jumped to attention when he entered, the whispers about what happened to those who crossed him. "Why did you come for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a waitress." Marco turned to her, his dark eyes unreadable. "You've never been just anything to me, Lily." The weight of his words hung between them as the city lights flashed by outside. What had she gotten herself into? And why, despite everything, did she feel safer now than she had in years? "You've seen how high the stakes are now, but this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far?" Marco's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a sprawling metropolis below, now glittering with nightlights. But Lily barely noticed the view. Her eyes were fixed on the doctor examining her arm, a grim-faced man who'd appeared within minutes of their arrival, medical bag in hand, asking no questions. "Clean break," the doctor muttered, carefully setting her arm. "You're lucky. 6 weeks in a cast should do it." Lucky wasn't the word Lily would have chosen. She winced as he began wrapping the cast, her eyes drifting to Marco, who stood by the window. His back was turned to her, phone pressed to his ear, voice too low to hear. The penthouse itself revealed much about the man she thought she knew. Minimalist, expensive furniture. No personal photos, no clutter. Just like at the restaurant, everything in Marco's world seemed perfectly controlled. "You'll need pain medication," the doctor said, breaking into her thoughts. He handed her a prescription. "And rest." "Thank you," Lily whispered, though the word felt inadequate for a man who'd shown up in the middle of the night without question. The doctor nodded, packed his bag, and left without another word. Marco ended his call and turned to her. "The guest room is ready for you. Through that door." He gestured across the open concept living area. "I can't stay here," Lily said, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. "I don't belong in your world." Marco's expression softened slightly. "And where would you go? Back to that apartment? To a hotel? Daniel might be hurt, but he has friends." Before she could answer, his phone rang again. Marco glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. "Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." He turned away, answering the call as he walked toward what appeared to be his office. Lily sat alone on the leather sofa, the pain medication beginning to dull the throbbing in her arm. She should feel relieved, safe. Instead, she felt like she'd stepped off the edge of her world into something deeper and darker. As she rose to find the guest room, voices drifted from Marco's office. "I want everything on Daniel, who he works for, who his friends are, where he gets his money." Marco's voice had returned to that cold, deadly tone from the apartment. Find out why he chose her. This wasn't random. Lily froze. What did he mean, not random? The way Marco said it sent chills down her spine. You've seen behind the mask now, the protection, the power, the danger, but there's so much more beneath the surface. Can you really turn away now, not knowing what Marco discovers? Subscribe to find out why Daniel targeted Lily and what Marco will do when he learns the truth. Lily woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the pain in her arm reminded her of everything: Daniel's rage, the desperate call, Marco's rescue. A knock at the door made her sit up. A woman entered, carrying a tray of food and fresh clothes. "Mr. Moretti asked me to bring these," she said, setting everything down. "He's waiting for you in his office when you're ready." 30 minutes later, dressed in clothes that somehow fit perfectly, Lily stood outside Marco's office. The door was open. Marco sat behind a desk, studying something on his computer screen with such intensity he didn't notice her. "You wanted to see me?" she said quietly. Marco looked up, his expression unreadable. "Come in. Close the door." He turned his screen toward her. On it was a photo of a man Lily hadn't seen in over a decade. "My father," she whispered, stepping closer. "Where did you get this?" "I've always had it." Marco's voice was quiet. "Your father worked for my organization before he was killed. He wasn't just an employee, he was my father's right hand." Lily stared at him, the room spinning slightly. "You knew? All this time?" "I promised him I'd watch over you if anything happened to him." Marco stood, walking to a window. "The restaurant job wasn't an accident. The apartment building you lived in, I own it. There have been men watching over you for years." Anger flashed through Lily. "You've been spying on me." "Controlling my life without my knowledge?" "Protecting you," Marco corrected. "And it's a good thing I was. Daniel isn't who you think he is." He touched a button on his desk, and another image appeared on screen. Daniel, meeting with an older, distinguished-looking man. "Alessandro Vitale," Marco said, his voice hardening. "My father's oldest friend, now my greatest enemy. Daniel works for him." Lily shook her head. "That's impossible. Daniel's just a bartender. I met him at a bar 3 blocks from the restaurant," Marco finished. "A bar owned by Alessandro. He put Daniel in your path, Lily. The question is why?" "I don't understand," Lily whispered, sinking into a chair. "Neither do I." Marco's eyes darkened. "But I will. And when I do, Alessandro will pay for what happened to you." The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Lily felt something else entirely, a connection to this man that went beyond employer and employee, a shared past she never knew existed. You came this far for answers, but each revelation only deepens the mystery. Why did Alessandro target Lily? What secrets did her father take to his grave? Don't leave them facing this danger alone. Subscribe now to witness the truth unfold and see how far Marco will go to protect what's his. 3 days passed in Marco's penthouse, 3 days of Lily pacing the rooms like a caged animal, her mind spinning with revelations about her father, about Marco, about her own life. She couldn't stay here forever. "I need to go back to work," she finally told Marco over breakfast. "I can't hide from my life." Marco's expression darkened. "It's not safe." "Then make it safe," she challenged. "You've been controlling things from the shadows for years. Do it where I can see it now." Something like respect flickered in his eyes. The next day, Lily returned to the restaurant. 2 men, clearly Marco's security, took tables near the entrance. Marco himself appeared at lunch, taking his usual corner booth, his eyes following her as she moved between tables. It almost felt normal. Almost. Until the flowers arrived. A delivery man brought them to the hostess stand, a dozen red roses with a small white card. Lily's name was written on the envelope in elegant script. The card inside contained 7 words: "He can't protect you forever." A. The restaurant's security footage showed the delivery came from one of Alessandro's men. When Marco saw the card, his face went completely blank, the same expression he'd worn before hurting Daniel. "Pack your things," he told Lily as they left the restaurant that evening. "You're coming to my estate outside the city." "Running away won't solve this," she argued, even as fear crawled up her spine. Marco stepped closer, his voice low. "This isn't about running, it's about choosing the battlefield. In the city, Alessandro has eyes everywhere. At my estate, I control everything." His proximity made her breath catch. In that moment, she realized how easily she'd begun to trust him, this dangerous man who'd been watching over her for years. "Why does he care about me?" she whispered. "What does Alessandro want?" "I don't know yet," Marco admitted, "but your father took something from him. Something valuable enough that Alessandro's still looking for it 15 years later." An hour later, they were in Marco's car, driving away from the city. Lily watched the skyline recede in the side mirror, wondering if she'd ever return to the life she thought was hers. In the growing darkness, Marco's hand found hers. "I won't let him hurt you." The simple touch sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with protection. "This is just the beginning, and I know you're already invested. You can't leave these characters hanging, can you? Subscribe now so you won't miss how this story unfolds. You're already here. Don't turn away now." Marco's estate was a fortress disguised as a mansion, security cameras hidden in statues, armed guards patrolling manicured grounds. Inside, however, it felt almost warm. Family paintings hung on walls. Books filled shelves. It was nothing like the sterile penthouse. On their second night there, Lily found Marco on the terrace, staring at the darkness beyond the property's lights. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat beside him. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked without turning. "Too many questions," she admitted, taking the seat across from him. "Tell me about my father, the real story." Marco was quiet for a long moment. "He saved my life once. I was 16, thought I knew everything, got myself cornered by rivals. Your father pulled me out, took a bullet doing it." He finally looked at her. "That's when I promised to look after you if anything happened to him. And you? How did you become—" She gestured vaguely. A bitter smile touched his lips. "The Wolf? I was born into this life. My father ran the organization before me, but I built it into what it is today." His eyes held hers. "Not all of it is what you think. We protect people who can't protect themselves." "Like me," she said quietly. "Yes." He hesitated. "Your turn. Tell me something real." "After my father died, I was so alone." The words came easier than she expected. "That's why, Daniel, I just wanted someone. Anyone." She looked down. "Pathetic, isn't it?" Marco's hand covered hers. "No, human." The next morning, Marco insisted on teaching her basic self-defense, her cast making some moves impossible. They practiced in the estate's gym, his hands guiding her through techniques. "Like this," he said, positioning himself behind her, his chest against her back as he showed her how to break a hold. His breath warmed her neck, sending shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. They froze in that position, neither moving away. Lily turned her head slightly, their faces inches apart. The moment shattered when Marco's security chief burst in. "Boss, we have a problem. Daniel's disappeared from the hospital, and our informant in Alessandro's organization was found in the river this morning. Throat cut." Marco's expression hardened instantly. "Get everyone back to the house. Double the perimeter guards." As the man left, Marco turned to Lily. "We're running out of time." "For what?" she asked, fear clawing at her again. "To figure out what your father took," Marco said grimly. "Because Alessandro is done playing games. You've seen how high the stakes are now, but this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming." Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far? Marco hunched over his laptop, dark circles under his eyes betraying his sleepless night. The screens surrounding him in his office displayed surveillance footage, financial records, and phone logs, all connected to Daniel. "Look at this," Marco said as Lily entered. He pointed to bank statements on the screen. Daniel was broke 6 months ago, then suddenly large cash deposits every 2 weeks, starting exactly 3 days after you met him. Lily's stomach twisted. "You think Alessandro paid him to date me? Not just date you, watch you, report on you." Marco pulled up more documents. Daniel has a record. Petty theft, assault. He's muscle, not a mastermind. Alessandro used him. "But why me?" Lily's voice cracked. "I'm nobody." Marco stood, moving to a wall safe hidden behind a painting. He entered a code and removed a thick file. "Nobody doesn't get this kind of attention," he said, laying photos across the desk. "Alessandro is methodical, calculating. He doesn't waste resources unless the payoff is significant." Lily stared at the surveillance photos of herself, walking to work, shopping, even sleeping through her apartment window. Years of her life, documented without her knowledge. "When did these start?" she whispered. "Shortly after your father's death." Marco's jaw tightened. "Alessandro's been watching you for over a decade, waiting for something." He pulled out one last document, a bank statement showing regular payments to Daniel from a shell company. "The payments increased after you moved in together," Marco said. "He was looking for something specific in your apartment." Lily sank into a chair, her world spinning. "I don't have anything valuable." Marco's security chief knocked once before entering. "Boss, we found something." He handed Marco a yellowed envelope. It was in the old archives. Inside were photos from decades ago, 3 young men arm in arm, laughing outside a club. Lily recognized her father immediately. The second man was clearly a younger version of Alessandro. The third, "Your father," she breathed, looking up at Marco. Marco stared at the photo, his expression unreadable. "They were friends once, before—" "Before what?" Lily asked. Marco's phone rang. He glanced at it, then back at her. "I need to see my father, right now." "Why?" "Because Alessandro hasn't been targeting my business," Marco said, his voice tight. "He's been targeting you, and my father knows why." "This story is spiraling into places you never expected, isn't it?" The puppet master revealed, the past connections emerging. Don't you need to know what Marco's father will reveal? Subscribe now to witness the truth that will change everything. You've come too far to turn back. Marco's father lived in a heavily guarded villa an hour from the estate. At 73, Antonio Moretti was frail, but his eyes remained sharp, calculating, the eyes of a man who had built an empire through cunning and force. "You found the photo," he said, when Marco placed it on the coffee table between them. "Not a question." "Talk," Marco demanded. "All these years you let me think Alessandro's vendetta was about territory, about power. It's about her, isn't it? About Lily's father." Antonio sighed, suddenly looking every year of his age. "Robert Winters wasn't just my right hand. He was Alessandro's half-brother." Lily gasped. "That's impossible. My father never mentioned—" "Same father, different mothers," Antonio continued. "They grew up together, joined the organization together, best friends, despite the complications of their birth." Marco paced the room. "What happened?" "Alessandro was always cruel." Robert looked the other way until he couldn't anymore. Antonio's hand trembled as he reached for his water. 20 years ago, Alessandro started trafficking people, women, children. Robert found out, gathered evidence. He came to me. "You chose Robert over Alessandro," Marco said. Antonio nodded. "We forced Alessandro out, but Robert knew too much. When Alessandro rebuilt his power, Robert became a target." "So you faked his death," Lily whispered, pieces falling into place. "The car accident. We gave him a new identity. He stayed in town to be near you, but hidden." Antonio looked at Lily with sad eyes. "But Alessandro found him anyway." "And the evidence against Alessandro?" Marco asked. "Robert hid it before he died. Something so damaging it would destroy Alessandro completely. That's what Alessandro wants from you." Antonio said, looking at Lily. "He thinks you know where it is." Marco checked his phone, 3 missed calls from his security chief. A chill ran down his spine. "We need to go. Now." They raced back to the estate, Marco breaking every speed limit. As they approached the gates, he knew something was wrong. The guard booth was empty. "Stay in the car," he ordered Lily, drawing his gun. The front door stood open. Inside, the marble floor was streaked with blood. 2 of Marco's men lay dead in the foyer. "Lily, run!" Marco shouted, but it was too late. She had followed him inside, her scream catching in her throat at the sight. A phone rang, not Marco's, but one lying beside one of the dead guards. Marco approached cautiously, putting it on speaker. "Hello, Wolf." Alessandro's voice was smooth, cultured. "Looking for something? Or should I say, someone?" Marco's blood turned to ice. "If you hurt her, come alone, you know where. Or the waitress dies like her father, slowly, painfully, begging for mercy that will never come." The line went dead. Marco stood in the bloodied foyer, rage and fear warring within him. Lily was gone. This is the moment everything changes. Alessandro has Lily, and Marco faces an impossible choice. Will he walk into a trap to save her? Does Lily hold secrets even she doesn't know? You've witnessed betrayal and blood. Can you really abandon them now? Subscribe to see what sacrifice and love truly mean in this dangerous world. Cold water splashed across Lily's face, jolting her awake. Her vision blurred, then focused on the elegant, silver-haired man standing before her. Alessandro Vitale looked more like a distinguished professor than a crime lord, calm eyes, expensive suit, manicured hands clasped behind his back. "Finally awake, my dear niece," he said, his voice carrying the faintest Italian accent. "I apologize for the accommodations." Lily tried to move, discovering her hands were bound to the chair. The room around her was luxurious, a study with leather-bound books and oil paintings. Through tall windows she glimpsed manicured gardens. "I'm not your niece," she spat. Alessandro smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. "Blood is blood, even when it's half. Your father and I shared a father, if not a mother." He walked to a sideboard, pouring amber liquid into a crystal glass. "Robert always thought he was better than me, more moral, more deserving." His knuckles whitened around the glass. "Even in death, he's still a thorn in my side. What do you want from me?" Lily's voice trembled despite her attempt to sound brave. Alessandro set the glass down, turning to face her. 15 years ago, your father stole something from me. Files, recordings, account numbers, evidence of certain business ventures, evidence that would destroy everything I've built." "I don't know anything about files," Lily insisted. "Oh, I believe you don't think you know." Alessandro circled her chair slowly. "But Robert was clever. He wouldn't have left this earth without ensuring his insurance policy survived." He stopped directly behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Lily flinched. "Think, Lily. Did he give you anything before he died? A key? A code? Perhaps a story that seemed meaningless at the time?" Memories flashed through Lily's mind. Her father's nervous behavior in those final weeks, a midnight trip to an old church, something about her childhood dollhouse. But she said nothing. Alessandro sighed, moving back into her view. "I've been patient. For 15 years I've watched you, waiting for you to lead me to what your father hid." "You've been stalking me my entire adult life," Lily realized with horror. "Daniel? A necessary tool," Alessandro waved dismissively. "Not particularly bright, but useful for keeping eyes on you." He checked his watch, then met her gaze with cold calculation. "You have a choice now, Lily. Remember what your father told you, or watch as I dismantle Marco's empire piece by piece, starting with the people he cares about." On a nearby table, a phone displayed security footage of the restaurant where Lily worked, her co-workers, her friends, all going about their day unaware of the danger. "You have until tomorrow night," Alessandro said, walking toward the door. "For their sake, I hope your memory improves." The look in his eyes left no doubt. This wasn't a bluff. The stakes couldn't be higher. Innocent lives hang in the balance while Lily searches her memories for clues her father left behind. Will she remember in time? Can Marco find her before Alessandro's patience runs out? You've witnessed her terror. How could you possibly leave her there alone? Subscribe now to see if love and loyalty can triumph over years of vengeance and hidden truths. Marco stood in his command center, surrounded by screens and men awaiting orders. His usual cool control had vanished, replaced by a cold fury that made even his most hardened soldiers uneasy. Every property Alessandro owns, every business front, every warehouse, I want eyes on all of them within the hour, he ordered, voice like steel. Anyone who's ever worked with him gets a visit. I don't care if you have to break bones. Find her. As his men dispersed, Marco's security chief approached. Boss, we found Daniel. Alive? Marco asked. Barely. Alessandro didn't trust him to keep quiet. Marco grabbed his coat. Take me to him. They found Daniel in a cheap motel room, nursing broken fingers and a knife wound to his side. When he saw Marco enter, his face drained of color. You should have killed me when you had the chance, Daniel whimpered. That option's still on the table, Marco said, drawing his gun. Where would Alessandro take her? I don't know, Daniel shrieked. He never told me the big picture, just to watch her, report if she did anything unusual. Like what? Marco pressed the gun to Daniel's temple. If she visited old places from her childhood, if she talked about her father, if she mentioned a church or a key. Marco froze. What church? I don't know. She never did any of that stuff. Daniel was sobbing now. Alessandro just got more impatient. Last month, he told me to start searching her apartment when she wasn't home. Looking for what? Files, USB drives, safety deposit keys. Daniel's eyes darted nervously. Please, that's all I know. Marco holstered his gun. If she dies because you can't remember something, I'll be back. Meanwhile, in Alessandro's mansion, Lily sat alone in a locked bedroom, her mind racing through childhood memories. Her father had always been protective, secretive. In those final weeks before his accident, he'd grown even more paranoid. One memory kept surfacing, her 10th birthday. Her father had given her an antique dollhouse, an exact replica of their home. This is very special, Lilypad, he'd said, using her childhood nickname. Our house has many secrets, and so does this one. Someday, you might need to find them. At the time, she'd thought it was just part of the game. Now she wondered, had her father hidden the evidence inside her childhood home? Or perhaps inside the dollhouse itself? And if so, where was the dollhouse now? Night fell over the city as fires blazed across Marco's territory. His restaurant, the one where Lily had worked, now stood in ruins, black smoke billowing from shattered windows. Across town, his warehouse burned. 3 of his clubs had been raided by police acting on anonymous tips. Alessandro watched the destruction on multiple screens from his study, a satisfied smile on his face. Behind him, Lily stood between 2 guards, brought down from her locked room to witness the carnage. Your wolf is losing his teeth, Alessandro said. By morning, half his empire will be ash. By tomorrow night, the rest will follow. Lily's heart ached seeing the restaurant in flames. People she'd worked with for years had lost their jobs, maybe even their lives. I'll make you a deal, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I think I know where my father might have hidden what you want. Alessandro turned slowly. Is that so? But you have to stop attacking Marco's businesses, stop hurting innocent people. A humorless laugh escaped Alessandro's lips. You care for him that much? This man who kept secrets from you your entire life? Do we have a deal or not? Lily demanded. Alessandro studied her face, searching for deception. Where are these items your father stole? There's a chapel, Lily said carefully. My father took me there when I was young. He had a key to a room beneath it. I remember him praying there. But he wasn't religious. Recognition flashed in Alessandro's eyes. St. Michael's, of course. He nodded to himself. You have until dawn to produce what I seek. After that, the deal expires, along with Marco's remaining properties and people. Across the city, Marco sat in his car outside Daniel's motel, a phone pressed to his ear. Nothing at any of Alessandro's known locations, his security chief reported. But we found something else. Alessandro's men were spotted near St. Michael's Chapel an hour ago. Marco frowned. The old chapel near the river? Why would he? He stopped as a memory surfaced. Robert Winters kneeling in that chapel, Marco's father standing guard outside. He'd been 12, brought along for what his father called an important lesson. "Get everyone we have left to the chapel," Marco ordered. "No one moves until I arrive." As he hung up, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dawn, St. Michael's Chapel. Come alone or she dies first." Marco started the engine. Dawn was 3 hours away. St. Michael's Chapel stood on a hill overlooking the river, its stone walls blackened with age. Once grand, it now sat abandoned, surrounded by an overgrown cemetery. The perfect place to hide secrets, or set a trap. Alessandro's convoy arrived as the eastern sky began to lighten. 4 black SUVs parked in the crumbling courtyard. Armed men emerged first, scanning the area before Alessandro stepped out, gripping Lily's arm. "Where?" he demanded, eyes darting across the chapel's facade. Lily pointed to a weathered side door. "There. It leads to the crypt." Inside, dust motes danced in the dim light filtering through stained glass. The chapel smelled of mold and forgotten prayers. Alessandro's flashlight beam cut through the darkness as they descended narrow stone steps into the crypt below. "My father brought me here on my 10th birthday," Lily said, her voice echoing off stone walls. "He said if anything happened to him, I should remember this place." Her eyes adjusted to the darkness. Stone sarcophagi lined the walls. At the far end stood a small altar. Lily walked directly to it, her fingers finding a loose stone in the wall behind. When she removed it, a small cavity appeared. "There," she whispered. Alessandro pushed her aside, reaching in. His hand emerged holding a small metal box and a sealed envelope. "Finally," he breathed, a smile spreading across his face as he opened the box. Inside lay a USB drive and a key. The envelope contained a handwritten letter addressed to "My dearest Lily." As Alessandro examined the items, Lily glanced toward the stairs. Had that been a shadow moving? "Your father thought he was so clever," Alessandro said, pocketing the USB drive. 15 years I've searched for this. 15 years watching you, waiting for you to lead me here." "You have what you wanted," Lily said. "Now let me go." Alessandro laughed. "You truly are naive. You think I'd leave a witness? You think I'd allow you to run back to Marco?" A click echoed in the crypt as Alessandro drew his gun. "Your father died in this crypt 15 years ago. How fitting that his daughter will join him." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," a voice called from the shadows. Marco stepped into the light. His own weapon aimed at Alessandro's head. Alessandro's men instantly drew their guns, creating a standoff. "You're outnumbered, Wolf," Alessandro said calmly. "Am I?" Marco's smile was cold. From the darkness behind him, more figures emerged. Marco's men, positioned throughout the crypt. Alessandro's face hardened. "How did you think I wouldn't have this place watched? After what happened to Robert here?" Marco moved closer. "Drop the gun. It's over." Alessandro's finger tightened on the trigger. "It's never over." Gunfire exploded in the ancient crypt, bullets ricocheting off stone as Marco dove behind a sarcophagus, pulling Lily with him. Alessandro's men scattered for cover, the peaceful sanctity of the chapel shattered by violence. "Stay down," Marco ordered, squeezing Lily's shoulder before rising to return fire. Alessandro had taken position behind the altar, the USB drive and key secure in his pocket. "You're fighting for a lost cause, Wolf," he called out. "I already have what I came for." "Then leave," Marco replied, gun trained on the altar. "Walk away while you still can." Alessandro laughed, the sound echoing off the stone walls. "You think I'd leave witnesses after 15 years of searching?" He fired toward Marco's position. "Besides, I'm just getting started. Your empire falls today." Marco signaled to his men, who began advancing through the crypt. They had the numbers, the position. For a moment, victory seemed possible, until the chapel door above burst open. Heavy footsteps descended the stairs, and a familiar voice called out, "Boss, We secured the perimeter. Marco felt a chill run down his spine. Vito, his underboss. The man he'd trusted for 10 years, but Vito wasn't looking at Marco. His eyes were fixed on Alessandro. All clear outside, Vito said, and Marco watched as more men filed in behind him, men wearing his family's colors but pointing guns at his position. Well done, old friend, Alessandro said, standing from behind the altar. Your loyalty will be rewarded. Marco's world tilted. Vito, what have you done? The underboss finally met Marco's eyes, his expression cold. Business, boss. Alessandro offered a better deal, nothing personal. With Vito's men, Alessandro now had the advantage. Marco and his loyal guards were surrounded, outgunned. It was you, Marco realized. You've been feeding him information. The restaurant, the warehouse, my home. You've grown soft, Vito spat, all because of her. He gestured toward Lily. The great wolf, reduced to a lovesick puppy? Alessandro stepped forward, confidence restored. Your father made the same mistake, Marco, letting emotion cloud judgment. He nodded to his men. Kill them all. Marco assessed their position in an instant. 6 of his men left, 12 of Alessandro's plus Vito's 8. No way out, but he'd faced worse odds. Lily, he whispered, remember what I taught you. With that, Marco launched himself from cover, firing with deadly precision. 2 of Alessandro's men fell before anyone could react. His loyal guards followed his lead, bullets flying across the crypt. Chaos erupted. In the confusion, Lily crawled toward a fallen guard, her eyes fixed on the gun that had skittered across the stone floor. Marco fought like a man possessed, but even his skill couldn't overcome the numbers. A bullet grazed his shoulder. Another hit his thigh. He stumbled, falling to one knee as Vito approached, gun raised. Nothing personal, Vito repeated, finger on the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the crypt, but it wasn't Marco who fell. Vito's eyes widened in shock as blood blossomed across his chest. He turned, disbelieving, to see Lily standing 10 feet away, the guard's gun steady in her hands. In the split-second distraction, Marco lunged forward, driving his knife into Vito's stomach. That's personal, he growled. The tide turned. Alessandro's men, seeing Vito fall, hesitated. Marco's guards seized the advantage, pressing forward with renewed vigor. Lily ducked behind a column as bullets flew. The lessons Marco had taught her flashed through her mind. Stay low, use cover, breathe through the fear. When a guard rounded her position, she remembered Marco's hands guiding her through the defensive move. She executed it perfectly, sending the man stumbling into the wall. Alessandro, seeing his advantage slipping away, made for the hidden exit at the back of the crypt. In his haste, he dropped the envelope, Lily's father's letter, though the USB drive remained secure in his pocket. Marco saw him escaping but couldn't break free from the firefight. Lily, he's getting away! She aimed at Alessandro's retreating figure, finger on the trigger. One shot could end this. But in that moment, she saw the letter on the ground, her father's last words to her. She made her choice, diving for the letter instead. Alessandro disappeared into the darkness of the tunnel. Minutes later, the gunfire ceased. Alessandro's remaining men surrendered or lay dead. Marco limped to Lily's side, blood soaking his pant leg. You saved my life, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Lily clutched her father's letter, hands trembling from adrenaline. You would have done the same. Marco's men secured the crypt, tending to the wounded. One approached with a medical kit, but Marco waved him away, eyes fixed on Lily. You crossed a line today, he said quietly. Taking a life. There's no going back from that. Lily met his gaze steadily. I made my choice when I called you that night. I just didn't know it then. Marco touched her face, his bloodied hand leaving a smear on her cheek. Alessandro escaped with the evidence. But I have this, she said, holding up the letter. Whatever my father wanted me to know, it's here. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Dawn had broken fully now, light streaming through the chapel's broken windows. We need to go, Marco said, helping Lily to her feet. This isn't over. I know, she replied, her voice stronger than she felt. But we're in it together now. 3 months passed, like a fever dream. Marco's empire, once in ruins, rose from the ashes stronger than before. His enemies whispered that he'd become more dangerous, more ruthless, a wolf who'd tasted blood and found his true nature. But those closest to him saw the change that few others could, the waitress who never left his side. Lily stood at the window of Marco's rebuilt penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below. No longer a server carrying trays, she now carried secrets, power, decisions. The woman who had called for rescue had become a rescuer herself. "Still can't sleep?" Marco asked, joining her at the window. His gunshot wounds had healed, leaving new scars among the old. "I keep thinking about my father's letter," Lily admitted. For weeks after the chapel, she couldn't bring herself to read it. When she finally did, the truth had changed everything. Marco's hand found hers. "You ready to finish this?" On the table behind them lay the open letter and a series of decoded instructions that had taken their tech team weeks to unravel. What they found was beyond anything they'd imagined: locations of Alessandro's hidden accounts, property deeds, offshore holdings. The evidence her father had stolen wasn't just about Alessandro's crimes, it was the key to his entire fortune. "He'll never stop hunting us," Lily said quietly. "Even with his empire crumbling, he'll come for revenge." Marco turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "We have a choice to make. We can stay and fight, or we can disappear," she finished, searching his eyes. "Use what we found to start over somewhere else." "I've never run from a fight," Marco said, "but I've never had something this important to protect either." Their lips met, a kiss that held the weight of everything they'd endured together. When they parted, Lily's decision was clear in her eyes. 12 hours later, they boarded Marco's private jet. Below them, federal agents raided Alessandro's remaining properties, armed with anonymous tips and evidence delivered in unmarked packages. "Where to first?" Lily asked as the jet reached cruising altitude. "Maldives? Switzerland? New Zealand?" Marco smiled, the expression softening his face in a way few had ever seen. "Wherever you want. We have the rest of our lives to decide." As if summoned by their happiness, both their phones chimed simultaneously. A text message from an unknown number appeared on both screens. "Enjoy your honeymoon. I'll be seeing you both soon. A." Marco's jaw tightened as he met Lily's gaze. Some wars couldn't be escaped. Some enemies wouldn't stay buried. "Together?" he asked, taking her hand. Lily nodded. "Together." The battle was over, but the war had just begun. You've witnessed their journey from that desperate phone call to this moment of both victory and uncertainty. Will Marco and Lily ever truly escape Alessandro's shadow? Can love survive in a world built on power and vengeance? Subscribe now to be the first to know when their story continues. After coming this far with them, how could you possibly miss what happens next?